Hello, everybody. Recording live from somewhere.
Welcome everybody back to the Pursuit Pod here for, I believe this is episode 20 of the pod, and it's been, again, another fun week of sports, especially because we got some Flyers talk coming up, and yeah, we're going to be missing Jason. He was an excellent guest star in the last week's episode of the pod, but this episode for you all, it's a little more low-key. I'm sorry my energy's not as up. I kind of woke up a little bit of a sore throat, and I have a competition later for this public speaking thing here at Clemson. So I'm trying to reserve some of my voice, if that makes sense. And we've got a lot of stuff coming up for this week. We got MVP finalists came out for the NBA. We have NFL draft outlook because that's starting up tomorrow. So I want to make sure that I get my predictions out there. I actually ended up doing a 7-round mock draft because I was a little bored. And yeah, there's the picks, maybe rounds 4 through 7 were a little lackadaisical, but truth is I got, Clemson players out there in the NFL. I got, Eagles picks, so we're gonna have a lot to touch on. So without further ado, let's roll right into the Roundball Rock segment because we have a lot with NBA playoffs just starting up. A few key things to note in the NBA playoffs so far are, especially with the first 2 games of each series kind of starting up here, is first thing I saw was the Cavaliers fixed themselves on defense. They forced a strategy targeted more on trying to stop the Raptors' Brandon Ingram, who has been averaging 20 shots against them per game. So I almost think that the Cavaliers are just focusing more on trying to get the other players some attention in that Raptors team, to try to test their depth as much as they can, trying to get Ingram to lower his volume per game, especially since, the Cavaliers are bringing in Dean Wade. He's starting to shadow defend Brandon Ingram. And basically this is just trying to adjust the Raptors against the player that's been giving them hell all year, especially with his volume of play, his volume of shooting. So it's really just trying to stop, a great player from trying to force more magic against the Cavaliers, and it could be a key to them winning the series here. I think it's a really smart strategy. Second, we saw the Pistons drop game 1 of their series to the Magic, and I mean, this opens up the question marks against the Detroit Pistons. Really just asking the questions, are the Pistons really true contenders that we believed all year, especially with the turnaround that their seasons had, or just their franchises had in the past year or so? They dropped game 1 to the inconsistent Magic. Cade had to carry with 39 points. Jalen Duren really didn't show us anything. Pistons were 4-16 from shots that were off Cade passes, as well as 4 from 16 from off the bench shots. Not to mention the Pistons just shooting 10 of 32 from 3 overall. I really just think this is a down night from the Pistons. I think they'll still win, maybe in 5 or 6 here. I think that, I don't trust the Orlando Magic. I was telling a buddy earlier in the weekend that saying, I don't think that the Orlando Magic are the most exciting playoff team to win or to watch. I don't think that they're going to do a lot coming up. So I think that, I think it was just a down night from the Pistons. I think that it was just a usual down night for any contending team. They're always going to, be kind of exposed that first 2 games, and then they're going to kind of pick it up, get back on track. I mean, we even saw last year the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know that the Pistons and Thunder are a very different team from last year's Thunder to this year's Pistons, but they're both, the 1 seeds in their respective conferences. And we saw the Oklahoma City Thunder, they had to trudge through 2 7-game series just to win that championship. There was a little bit of blood on that ring. So, but right now, in comparison, and not really the Spurs anymore, which we'll get to in a minute, but the Celtics, Thunder, the respective other 1 and 2 seeds in the East and the West have looked dominant so far. And even then, that note's even a little outdated just because of the Sixers game against the Celtics last night. So it's not entirely dominance from these top seeds anymore. The Thunder are really just the only ones that are, still giving their opponent some issues here. So I don't think that it's fair to say that the Pistons are in and out of this playoffs. I think it was just an inconsistent game. Every top seed is going to drop a game like that. It's just the Magic balled out that game. So, I mean, a little bit of a surprise there, which I did not expect at all. Third thing to see would be noting Jaden McDaniels, his comments against the Denver Nuggets, stating that they are just simply made up of bad defenders. He named Nikola Jokic, specifically Jamal Murray, as well as Aaron Gordon and Cam Johnson. McDaniels also pointed out that they don't defend the rim as well, and the Wolves also came back down 19 in that game too. And really, I mean, this is a big reason why the Wolves have been able to overtake the Nuggets in recent years, and that would be, make Jokic the primary defender out there on the court, force Jamal Murray to defend the perimeter against taller opponents, which he's shown that he's not the best at. And honestly, I think that, just the way the Timberwolves played that night would be just showing the difference between the title-winning Nuggets team in 2023 that was just draped with aggressive defenders all across the board to go around the Jokic-Murray duo than they do have today, which is more of a ragtag team, which are still a good team. Jokic kind of had a down year compared to what he usually has, and we're going to get on to that in a minute. But really just to see, the difference between those two teams, those kinds of Nuggets teams, and just even to see the difference between the Jokic-Murray duo then compared to what it is now, you see why the Nuggets have not been successful, I should say, in the past few years compared to that amazing championship run that they had that year. And point number 4, which is become a scary point more. Our original note was that the Wembanyama Spurs are here. This era is officially here. He had a 35-point outing, and this put him in with the likes of LeBron, KD, Steph for amazing playoff debut stat lines, despite having average number of rebounds, assists. But I mean, the energy is alive in San Antonio, and this even goes to the Bill Simmons argument that he tried to say on some sort of talk show, some sort of podcast, saying that he thinks that it's kind of stupid that the Spurs are trying to force their fans to wear their shirts that they give out, even though, you look at that San Antonio Spurs game 1, that was just electricity in the arena that game because everyone had their shirt on. They were calling out fans on the Jumbotron if they didn't have their shirt on. And I think that this is an awesome thing for the NBA playoffs. I feel like that's a big thing that the NBA has kind of lost in recent years. And I was talking to a buddy about this just last night, talking about how the NBA kind of lost its allure over the years. And it's not even anything against the talent, because the talent's at an all-time high right now. It's going to keep pushing up and up at a level. It's just how basketball works. But you got guys like Bill Simmons who are saying that, it's just saying that it's stupid that they're trying to keep up this playoff atmosphere. I think it adds a lot to the experience. It's going to add a lot to the players who are getting their first chops in the playoffs. It's going to add a lot to, show why this team can be more successful than other teams in the playoffs. Because, years ago you had the whole strength in numbers thing from the Warriors, and they were an outrageous team all by themselves, but you had that, and then you had, everyone was going to wear their blue or gold shirts. It had the whole arena chanting the Warriors, but I think you kind of need that, especially a team like the Spurs that are they've been there before. They've been to the biggest heights of the NBA before as a franchise, and they're trying to get back there again. So I think it's kind of stupid that Bill Simmons is calling them stupid for the whole shirt thing. I think you need to allow these fans to show their approval, to show, their fandom on the highest stage, because, this team deserved to get here. The fans deserve to be here to watch this game. So why not try to build some atmosphere with it? And I think the Spurs have done a great job trying to build some fandom up over the years, trying to, revive their championship hopes. They've had the whole drum thing, the whole drum tradition after their wins that they tried to start up earlier at the beginning of the season, and I think they did that after game 1. It's been, they're adding something to the NBA that we haven't seen in a little while. They're trying to add their own traditions. They're trying to add, a sense of unity across the fans, something that they can all smile at after and look back on and say, hey, this arena looked pretty sick for this playoff game, so why not continue on there and keep things going with that. I think that it's a stupid take from Bill Simmons there. And even besides that, the Spurs, I see that Wembanyama is going to be out potentially the next few games for his concussion protocol. He fell underneath the basket and hit like his chin directly on the floor, on the hardwood, and he was just knocked out cold for a quick minute there. And we'll see what happens, because the Blazers were able to come back, win that game, and they ended up taking a crucial game 2 there to tie the series up and to kind of poke some holes in the Spurs playing in that Spurs team. So, we now have a series, and that's why I'm so hesitant to talk about the Pistons in a way that they're like, oh, their season's over because they lost a single game against the Magic, because the Celtics now lost against the Sixers. You also have the Spurs, I just mentioned, they lost to the Blazers. Pistons lost to game 1. Thunder are still doing all right, but these top seeds, it just shows that the talent's so balanced in the NBA that these top seeds that seem untouchable can still be beat down, even if it isn't just in a single game. I'm gonna take my headphones off. I feel like I feel like everything's so stuck in my ear that I can hear every single part of what I'm trying to say here. So we're gonna take these off. Now, the NBA announced the NBA MVP finalists for the 2025-26 season, them being, as we just mentioned, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I want to take the rest of this segment to touch on all 3 of these candidates, their track records, their resume, their case to be the next 2026 NBA MVP. So let's start out with SGA. And we talked in weeks before saying, didn't we say that this race was over earlier in the year? We said that step back 3 was the cherry on top for this back-to-back MVP season. He's had 66.5% true shooting along with a 70% win rate. He's in company, and that puts him in company with 2016 Steph Curry. That's something. That is something to keep note of, because 2016 Steph Curry, unanimous MVP, one of maybe the greatest single season player of all time, you could argue. And Shai has just been, overall simply an efficient and consistent player all year, especially building off of last year. He's been the best high volume isolation player. He's had 1.22 points per possession, which is, that's just, especially in isolation ball, which is the foundation of the modern NBA, that already ends the MVP conversation right there. Not to mention he shoots over 38% on off the dribble threes. He averages 31.1 on 60, 39, 88 shooting splits. He's also leading the NBA in clutch points. He just won Clutch Player of the Year, that little award. He's also had the league best 22 shots to tie or take the lead in clutch situations this year. And then you even have different numbers, such as his isolation, where he's 0.99 points per possession. And then his closeout numbers, 1.02 points per possession. And these numbers, they seem to paint him closer to average, if not slightly below, especially on the defensive side. But the truth is that SGA affects the game as a secondary rim protector for the Thunder, as his opponents only score 55.8% of shots at the rim against him, which is actually down from 64% last season. So Shai, just keeping his consistency, keeping his efficiency, he has a strong case to go back-to-back this year. And honestly, looking back at the numbers, I wasn't the biggest Shai for his second MVP for this season guy, but honestly, looking at the numbers now, I see why he's been up in that MVP conversation all year round. And honestly, I'm starting to get a little sold on the SGA for MVP talk for this year. Now, for Nikola Jokic, the biggest narrative around his MVP case is, are people simply bored of statistical greatness? He's been rolling highs in assists and rebounds as well, and that's highs in the league, as well as a 66.9% true shooting metrics. He's a damn near automatic scorer. He's been elite in both being the screener and ball handler in pick and roll situations, as being the screener, the Nuggets have had 1.07 points per possession, and when he's just the ball handler in the pick and roll situation, he's 1.12 in the latter for points per possession. And with Jokic on the floor, the Nuggets were on pace for 128.1 offensive efficiency rating, which is him being on the floor. That makes them one of the best all-time great offensive efficient teams in NBA history. Not just this year, but in NBA history. Not to mention, Jokic has the largest on-off differential in the league with plus 14.9, and he's had high defensive rebounding numbers, especially with people kind of dissing his defense. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, we just talked about how he was dissing the Nuggets defense overall, how when Jokic is the primary defender, you can really get around him for the most part. And the truth is, I mean, the 2026 season is not the prettiest for Jokic by far. He's had a little bit of injury concerns, not to mention just overall, it's really just been rough by his standards. But this, I mean, we just mentioned 66.9% true shooting metric, eliteness in both being the screener and ball handler in pick and roll situations, not to mention argued one of the highest offensive efficiency ratings of all time. That being rough for his standards, I think that should just mean that he should have just won the last 10 MVPs. I mean, so much dominance, even for it being a quote-unquote down year for Jokic. There's definitely a case there for him. There's definitely a case there for him over SGA, but now we get into Wembanyama, and his narrative is he just got named the youngest defensive player of the year, maybe the most dominant defensive player of the year award winner ever. Yahoo Sports ranked him against other defensive player of the year finalists like Usar Thompson, Chet Holmgren, in comparison to their points defended metric. And Wembanyama was leading the pack with 9.76 points defended per game. Usar and Chet both had their metrics only in the 7-point region, which is still really good. They're still defensive player of the year. They would have won it any other year, but you're going against Wembanyama. I don't see anyone with his height, with the way he plays, and the fact that he's literally blocked, I think the stat was 49.9% of all unique opponents so far in his career. Absolutely mind-blowing statistic. I don't see anyone else winning Defensive Player of the Year until Wemby either has a year where he's not, he doesn't play the minimum amount of minutes or games for the awards, or until he retires. The Spurs were the second best defensive team this year in terms of their efficiency rating with 110.4% or 110.4, as well as Wembanyama being the fourth best rebounding player in the league this year. Opponents can only make 26.2% of their shots when Wembanyama is on the floor. Compared to off the court, that jumps up to 31.6%. Not to mention, and this is coming off a minutes restriction. Wembanyama isn't even playing the normal amount of minutes that Jokic, SGA see, that even like guys like Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, those guys see. He's coming off 25 points off 59, 35, 83 shooting splits. The impact also comes with him rolling in pick and rolls. The Spurs have generated 1.12 points per possession when he's an on-ball screener. So, I mean, looking at all of those numbers, looking at just the numbers from points per possession, talking about offensive efficiency rating, defensive efficiency rating, even just the points defended, Wembanyama, the thing about Wembanyama is, again, if he's not off the minutes restriction, I know with his height, health issues, it's kind of hard to take that gamble to see what happens if you take him off minutes restriction. Truth is, he can be MVP of the league for the next 5 years if he's playing more minutes, if he's getting his numbers up a little bit. But he has an insane efficiency. Not even playing a full game, 25 points with amazing shooting splits, MVP level shooting splits, not to mention he's the biggest impact on the defensive side of the court. It's fantastic stuff from Wembanyama, and he's really just lived up to the player that he was talked about to be, lived up to the player that was the number one overall pick in that draft, not to mention having an amazing game in his playoff debut, as well as the fact that he could be out on concussion protocol the next few games, could really be a danger to these Spurs, which they have a great team around them, De'Aaron Fox, Stephen Castle, but that's the thing. What are they without Wembanyama? They have those great role players around them, but can they really work without this great defensive anchor? That's why I'm so torn. And again, the SGA numbers are just absolutely nuts. And I know, I mean, again, like the defensive side is a little more average for SGA, but he has been a great rim protector, secondary rim protector, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, his stats are just incredible. His shooting splits are incredible. I really think that this award is going to be between Wembanyama and SGA. And I was huge earlier on in the year in saying, it's Jokic. It's Jokic. I think Jokic is the best player in the NBA. I will preface, before I make my decision to the MVP, as a voter, which I'm not even, I don't even have the power to vote in the NBA right now. Hopefully sometime soon. But yeah, Jokic, he was my guy earlier on in the year. And I still think that if you really want to be objective about the greatest player in the NBA, it's Nikola Jokic. And I know that the defensive stuff isn't the best, but I mean, you can also make that case against Luka, and he's not an MVP finalist. But this year is between Wemby and SGA, and I think it's really just the decision of offensive greatness. I mean, arguably 2016 Steph level of greatness, not to mention SGA began the year never playing a fourth quarter. His win rate is nuts. True shooting percentage is nuts. He plays the way that the modern NBA plays to a perfect T. There's no question why he is an MVP candidate. But then you have Jokic. I mean, not Jokic. You have Wembanyama, and he's just absurd among the rest in defense. And I mean, I love seeing defensive players get their flowers. And I love Wembanyama. I'm a guy who always will. I mean, this is kind of my mentality with Connor Bedard and even McDavid. Like in hockey, I like the idea of rooting for players to become the next GOAT. Wembanyama, he's just, the fact that his absence could be some trouble for the Spurs against the Blazers here in that first round series, but when he's on the court, they'll steamroll through them. That's why I want to say Wembanyama is MVP, because the team around him is good. And SGA, I mean, the Thunder are like the deepest team in the league, like by far. That's why I'm so torn a little bit, because like how much of it is help from the rest of the team for the Thunder. I mean, you got guys like Jared McCain, you can really just plug and play in that Thunder offense, and they end up becoming an all-star again. That's why I'm just like, and I know people are against Wembanyama winning the MVP this year, because people are talking about how like he was never in the conversation just because of injury, because he's on a remittance restriction, and then he comes in all of a sudden at the end of the year just because he cried in a press conference about it. Which, I mean, like that's an understandable point, but at the same time, we're talking about Victor Wembanyama, who just had the most dominant defensive season, arguably ever. He was the first unanimous defensive player of the year at his age, and just watching his game, he's just incredible. And I don't even want to I don't want to choose here. I'm truly torn. I'm truly torn against SGA and Wemby. And Wemby, like, he's a great offensive player too, but he doesn't have this historical efficiency that SGA has. And that's why I guess I'll choose SGA as my 2026 MVP before the real answer is chosen, because when it comes to the NBA, the defense isn't the best, yes, and that's why I like Wembanyama a lot. But the truth is, it's about scoring. It's about isolation play. It's about putting up these historic numbers, which the history is being beat like constantly, 24/7 in the modern NBA. And SGA is a big reason for that, because he's taken advantage of the offensive groundwork that is being done game to game in the NBA. So I guess I'll pick SGA as my 2026 MVP. True shooting percentage is nuts. Again, a little more average on the defensive side, but he actually has improved a lot more on the defensive side than we might say. 31.1 on very efficient numbers. I mean, and I know Luka tried to bring up his MVP status with some insane offensive outputs, but I have SGA here. I'll say my ranking for the finalists is SGA, number 1. He should win this award. Wembanyama at a very, very, very close second. I think it really just matters on the minds of the voters this year. And then I have Jokic probably third. But I mean, the thing is, like, Jokic is the best player out of those three right now, I would argue. But in terms of just this season, in terms of the numbers, if you're going to go really deep into the statistics, SGA is my number one choice for he's my number one choice for the MVP this year. Now, since we've gotten through the Roundball Rock segment, I would like to switch gears to 4th and 4, and it's NFL draft time. So, again, I'm not an expert by any means. I don't watch college football as closely as I probably should, especially trying to get into what I'm trying to get into. But I made a mock draft based on not just my own thoughts based on team needs, but also going into the scouting reports of each players, as well as basing it off of other mock drafts of other experts. So, without further ado, let's see into my first round mock draft. And this is no trades. This is just too complicated to predict. This is a no trades first round mock draft. I did do all 7, and I'll get more into my later picks later on in the draft. And this is probably going to age terribly just due to, various. There's going to age bad just because there's going to be trades happening. And then literally right after I did this mock draft, I saw the reports that the Cardinals are probably going to pick Jeremiah Love if he's available at number 3. And they're making their plan to kind of base their draft around Jeremiah Love. So I guess I'm already wrong in that aspect. But, obviously Mendoza goes number 1 to the Raiders. That's set in stone. I did a while ago have Ruben Bain going number 2 to the Jets. But I see his hype has been kind of gone after he was like the clear-cut number 2 guy in the draft. Or maybe he was like the clear-cut number 3 guy in the draft after Arvell Reese. And David Bailey has also been falling recently. And I actually saw that the Jets called off his draft visit. Again, number 1, number 2 are set in stone here. I think it's going to be Mendoza and Reese, 1 and 2, unless the Jets decide to trade away their pick, which I don't see why not. And people will talk about Ty Simpson going number 2 in this draft, and I don't see it. I don't see why he would go in the first round. Ty Simpson, he's a good player, good prospect, but if anything, I have him chosen 33rd. I think the Jets will end up trying. I think they're going to target him. I think they're going to try to take him in that first pick of the second round. But overall, I also have Cardinals taking the Miami tackle. And the Cards allowed the 5th most sacks in the league last year, and their tackles had the worst run block win rate in the NFL. That's why to take a well-rounded prospect like him with plenty of upside, I think that's more important than getting the running back. That's just me. I know Jeremiah Love's an amazing player. He's going to the Titans 100%. I almost see the Titans trying to swap their pick just to get him a little sooner. I think not that it would be a mistake for the Cardinals to pick Jeremiah Love. I just don't see how it makes sense just due to the numbers. Again, the way that you build your team up is through the offensive line. And they're not in the position to get a quarterback probably this year. You probably want to ride it out, see what happens for this season. But the truth is, when you're allowing that many sacks in the league, and then your tackles are just getting beat to crap, I think it's important that you take almost like the unsexy pick here, the non-sexy pick here, and you take the tackle instead of the running back. Ruben Bain, I just mentioned, he slides to 11. I just think his hype has kind of been gone. He's kind of been sliding as a prospect, and he's not really like a top need for Miami, the Dolphins, but I just think you're going to take the guy from that area. They lost Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips in recent years, which has been weighing strong despite the work that they've put in this offseason to address the edge rusher room. And again, I had Bain going number 2. I thought that was going to be, the elite steal of the draft, but I guess the hype isn't there. I haven't really been watching the NFL draft coverage as recently, but I think that so far, just in the first 11 picks, I think that he's a steal of the draft so far. I think he's going to be a great NFL player. I also think that Mansour Delane from LSU will end up dropping to Dallas, despite him being the best defensive back. Some of the other mock drafts I saw had him going to the Commanders, the Saints, at 7 or 8. and I think that it's likely. But I just don't see the Commanders or Saints like realistically passing up the Jordan Tyson, Caleb Downs back to back. I think they're going to go back to back. I think that their value is so strong in their differing positions, and I just don't see why you would pass up on those guys. And I mean, yeah, I have Dallas taking arguably the steal of the defensive side of the draft so far, but I have them taking Lee Hunter later on, which it may seem like a reach. That's a guy who's projected, earlier second round. It might be a little bit of a pickup that, maybe it's a steal, maybe it's more of a reach. I don't know, because it's hard to predict, but he is a great player, and he is a pickup for them, especially for team needs, especially if that is the case, they end up picking him. I think it's a smart decision, honestly. He's proven, and I don't see what the big idea against him being taken is. But besides those picks, besides, Bain falling, Delane going to Dallas, and besides Lee Hunter being a little bit reached on, I don't really see anything too out of the ordinary with my mock draft. The important next few picks in the second round would be Ty Simpson, I said, going 33rd to the Jets. I think that he will be taken earlier than we may expect. TJ Parker from Clemson going to Tennessee with the 34th pick. And Emmanuel McNeil-Warren going to Las Vegas in that second round. And I'm pretty high on those Toledo boys now, specifically after the Eagles. That's just, you love to see it. Quinyon Mitchell, I don't know how his name slipped from my mind there. But I'm high on the Toledo guys now. And McNeil-Warren, he very well could go at the very end. I've seen people putting him picked 32nd in this draft, so whatever happens, happens. And to keep going with my mock draft here, just because the whole story isn't really said through just the first round. The first round isn't the most. It's an important round, but it's not the craziest round because you'll get a lot of depth later on. I'll give you my official quarterback mock draft, or my official quarterback ranking in terms of mock. So Fernando Mendoza goes round 1, pick 1 to the Raiders. Ty Simpson, just mentioned, 33rd to the Jets. Then I have in the third round with the 76th pick, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU going to the Steelers. And I think Nuss, honestly, is probably my favorite just off film of these quarterbacks. And I know Fernando Mendoza is the clear-cut number 1, but Nussmeier is probably my favorite. Also, I saw him play in person in the LSU Clemson game, and he fried us. He fried an NFL-worthy defense, which, we were kind of exposed later on in the year. And not to mention, he was playing hurt all year. They just found a cyst in him that somehow LSU missed. I think Nussmeier is going to be a starting quarterback in like 2 years. I think that the Steelers picking him would be the most smart decision, especially with, Aaron Rodgers should be back, right? But at the same time, they're going to need to train someone up for the Steelers, and I almost think that they want to go homegrown. They want to take someone that they can develop. Hopefully, it's someone like a Jordan Love that can sit after Aaron Rodgers, see how a veteran works, and try to work their way up. I don't think this is going to be a Kenny Pickett situation. With the fourth pick, 104th, or sorry, not the fourth pick. If this is the fourth pick of the draft, I will stop watching the NFL. In the fourth round with the 104th pick, Carson Beck goes to the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals will want to splurge on a quarterback, and Carson Beck is not my favorite prospect in this draft. I think he's very overrated. I think that he's a choker in big moments overall, but I have the Cardinals taking him because they need to take the next best guy after they've addressed their top few needs. And he's not someone that would start, but I think they would try to develop him, or maybe just pick him for insurance in case things don't turn around next year, try to see where the tank goes, and then if not, they'll have a much better quarterback room coming up in the next draft. In the fifth round, I have Cole Payton of North Dakota State going to the Cleveland Browns. Fifth round with the 157th pick, Taylon Green of Arkansas going to the Lions. With the 196th pick in the sixth round, Cade Klubnik of Clemson goes to the Minnesota Vikings. people talk about him going undrafted or very, very late in the 6th round, but I think he'll be taken by a contending team. I said, and I wrote in an article that I think that he would be taken like as an insurance flyer in the 6th round, but by like the Jets or something. But I think he'll go to a contender as a backup, just in case. I think he can be an okay QB2, QB3 in the league. 6th round, 216th pick. I have Drew Aller also going to the Steelers, which I think, looking back on it, that was either a mess up by me, not realizing that I already took Nuss as at QB for the Steelers, or I really just thought they would go for a Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier QB battle when A-Rod is gone, which would be very, very entertaining, I will say. But, I mean, I could see them taking 2 quarterbacks just to get the depth going, even just cut Aller before the season starts, keep him on the practice squad or something. You could see what happens there. It could be a Kyle McCord situation like it was in the Eagles, where you know you're not going to play him, but he's just kind of on the team. And in the 7th round, not the final one, 7th round, 232nd pick, I have Joe Fagnano. Joe Fagnano of UConn going to the Los Angeles Rams. And people say that they think that the Rams will take a quarterback 4th, 5th round after taking some of their needs. But honestly, I don't think they're going to end up going all out and taking a high-end quarterback this draft. I think they'll take Fagnano for just depth. They'll take him as a backup, God forbid someone goes down, right? As if Stafford goes down at all, just to use him to develop him, see what happens with him. I just think there's other things to focus on for the Rams. They're already in a great position. Stafford's going to play for the next 1 or 2 years. And especially in next year's draft, when Arch Manning, Dante Moore, Julian Sand come in as top candidates for next year, I don't see the Rams again taking a high-end pick. If anything, I could see them going and getting Drew Aller earlier on in the draft, taking him as, again, an insurance quarterback just in case Stafford goes down. I don't think their focus will be or should be on quarterback this draft. And then the last quarterback pick of the draft, I have Haynes King of Georgia Tech going to the Green Bay Packers. But that's my ranking of these quarterbacks. My least favorite is Carson Beck. My favorite's probably Garrett Nussmeier in terms of NFL-ready talent here. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what happens in the draft. Hope the Eagles pick well. But to move on from that, we're going to skip my stick because we have to talk some Flyers here. So we took a 2-0 lead in the series against the Penguins, which, could you have expected this? Probably not. This is just the Jason Melroy prophecy, if you really want to get into it. Jamie Drysdale scored along with Martin in Game 1 after he was saying those 2 players are probably his top 5 biggest impact players of the season, just talking about how Jamie Drysdale has become more consistent. He's become more of a mainstay in this Flyers team. And Marty Supreme, I mean, Martin has just been killing people. He has just been killing it in the NHL so far. It's his 10th NHL game, by the way. And he's scored basically in every single one, gotten a point in every single one. Not to mention, Vladar remained a brick wall despite the last-minute score on him in Game 1. And then he shut out the Penguins in their own home ice, in their own barn in Game 2, which was pretty awesome. Vladar, again, another impact player of this season, as Melroy said in the last podcast. In my eyes, the Penguins, they had to play a dirty game to keep it close in Game 1. I just don't think that they have it in them. They don't have the energy in them that the Flyers have. And again, with the Flyers taking care of business among a very loud Pittsburgh crowd, a very hard-nosed loud Pittsburgh crowd, if anything, this switched the gears. The Penguins are the team that looks more inexperienced and not ready for the moment. And I absolutely love the energy and the little fights between every player, in between whistles. I kind of hope that we get a big brawl at some point in these next 2 games in Philly, but tonight will be Game 3, and my prediction is I just don't see the Flyers coming into this game and dropping it. I think that they're going to ride the momentum. They're going to be in front of a very, 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 very loud Philly arena, and they have the expectations now. They already have the playoff experience of the first 2 games being away, and now things just get easier in front of the home crowd. I think they'll win probably like a 4-5 to maybe 2-goal victory there. I think Vladar will play well. I think we're going to see some sort of Martone magic again. So, I know. Sorry, it's not a lot to mention about the Flyers, but I mean, I just wanted to let their success speak for itself. Everyone's going crazy in the city right now. I'm just sure of it. I kind of wish I was back home now to kind of see what the vibe was like. I feel like just things would be high. I think that the vibes are just riding high right now, honestly, all across Philadelphia, just because of the Flyers, which is the most unexpected storyline. You would think that after that amazing start from the Sixers, and, I know the Eagles lost in the wild card, but the fact that they've been flip-flopping Super Bowl wild card, you would think that maybe back in October or November that the Sixers-Eagles would be like shooting for a championship right now, right? And that the Phillies will be doing amazing right now, but really it's the Flyers that are just keeping this city together, and people are cautious to root for them, but Philly is all in on the Flyers, which is just fantastic to see. I really never thought. I was talking to Jason about this a while ago, and he was saying that he just wanted something for the Flyers. He just wanted something, even if it was a championship, even if it was just consistent playoff appearances, because they haven't had a lot recently. They made the Stanley Cup like almost 2 decades ago now to this point, maybe like a decade and a half. So we're about to be hosting our first real home playoff game in a decade tonight. So amazing stuff. And Jason he showed me he got tickets for the next round if they advance. So hopefully, knock on wood, that's not a jinx. So we'll see what happens there. We will see what happens there. And for the Eagles talk, again, I just want to talk more mock draft. To start out, the A.J. Brown trade per Adam Schefter is like basically all but confirmed. It seems like it will be a Patriots deal. And I guess my only hope for this deal, even though I think it's really stupid the way it was done, just through the 94 WIP trying to push propaganda, Dana Rossini, I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. I mean, I don't really care. She's a slimy journalist anyway. She kind of lowering the trade value of A.J. Brown, Mike Vrabel doing some shady crap to kind of get that deal going. I just think this is a stupid situation. And A.J. Brown's an all-time great on the Eagles. And I think that we tried to push him out of town. At the same time, I think that he tried to push himself out of town for no reason. He got his ring and he wanted to dip. Whatever, dude. We have a lot more to look forward to. We have a pretty decent wide receiver room without him right now. Devontae Smith would go off next year without A.J. Brown trying to force targets. Hollywood Brown still going to do his thing, still kicking. Dontavian Wicks is an underrated pickup for the Eagles, in my opinion, especially for what we paid for him. And then we have the draft coming up. And I think that we will honestly splash on I think we will try to splash on I think we will try to splash on a wide receiver later in the draft. And I had my mock draft tab. Let me see if I can get that back up. I do have the full Eagles mock draft, which I guess I could go into here. So our real needs that we want to aim for in this draft and draft outlook would be, I think offensive line is probably the most important thing. Lane Johnson's aging, and he was like, him and Dickerson were like minutes away from retiring. I know Dickerson's back for the long haul, but this O-line was just so bad last year, honestly. Even Mailata was regressing. I just think that we need to just retool. We need to just draft as much as we can in this O-line, or just more stronger players here. Besides that, it's probably edge rusher, wide receiver just to have insurance, as well as safety. So, the beginnings of my mock, as I showed earlier in the 4th and 4th segment, would be we hit pick Caden Proctor, a tackle from Alabama, which, I mean, this would just be the usual Howie Roseman home run sleeper pick in the first round. I really think that we'll pick offensive line here. It'll be Proctor or Blake Miller. Really, whoever Pittsburgh doesn't take before us. I mean, Proctor he isn't a finished product by any means, and he needs improvement on his foot speed, but he's a massive guy. 366 at 6'7". He is just powerful. I mean, that would just be a home run pick. Second round, 54th pick, I have Eli Stowers, tight end from Vanderbilt. And I think, honestly, second, third round, we just go best tight end. We need Dallas Goedert was trying to get out of here. He'll be back on a 1-year deal, and I want to keep him for as long as we can. But I just don't see why we wouldn't just go best tight end at this point, unless, Ken Sadiq, Stowers, and Max Clare are all taken before the 54th pick. Which, I mean, I don't know if that's realistic. I feel like teams don't really go tight end in those first 2 rounds all too much. I think tight ends are usually a second, third round thing because you want to take, quarterbacks, edge rushers, D-line, all those different positions. You don't really get into, the intangibles like tight end until the second, third round. So I don't see why we wouldn't just go tight end here at this pick just to get out of the way. Unless, again, like I just said, the big 3 of the tight end prospects this year are all taken. I just don't think it's realistic. And Stowers brings in a huge usage rate and heavy receiving role from Vanderbilt, which is, that's exactly what we use our tight ends for, especially if Goddard has good free agency value next year, because, Goddard, Calcaterra, even Ertz before all of them, were all just huge receiving tight ends. Goddard's coming off a career year, so he would fit perfectly into our system, especially if he can play the way that he played at Vanderbilt. Now, other guys, honestly, I was telling someone about this last night. If you really want to talk about who the Eagles could pick in the draft, honestly, literally everyone in that kind of 20 to 40 range of prospects, I would see them taking. Blake Miller, I'm cool with that. Avion Terrell, I was high on the Eagles trying to get him. You could move him to safety. Caleb Lomu, who has a strong foundation. He would be a project. Denzel Boston, he's a very smooth player, and really it just depends on what happens with A.J. Brown. We could always just go for it and take him if we don't get a good return for him. Kendrick Falk, he's a very NFL-ready player with his frame and has power. And honestly, I would be pretty cool with taking him. And I think that he would be a really good addition to our defensive line. And even Zion Young, who I have picked 40th, I believe, later on in the draft. But he is just well-built, consistent, high-effort player. He lacks some athletic traits, but I think that his track record just shows for itself. And to round out the rest of my Eagles picks in my mock draft, and pardon me for mispronouncing these people's names. I do not mean any disrespect. Gabe Jackass from Illinois, an edge rusher going into the 3rd round. 98th pick, I have Dazon Stribling, a wide receiver from Ole Miss. 114th, I think that we're going to continue our trend of picking a safety in the 4th round with VJ Payne, a safety from Kansas State. 137th, I think that we're going to go offensive line in the next 2 picks with Jude Bowery from Boston College and then Inez Cooper from Miami, Florida. And then honestly, just because why not? Even though our running back room is pretty set right now, we could always use some more bolstering. I think that we would take Adam Randall with the 197th pick very, very, very late into that 6th round or maybe early 7th round. I don't see why we wouldn't take Randall, because honestly, here's the thing. Why the hell not? He could be a wide receiver 5 for us if we need it. He could be a good returner. He showed a lot of promise at the running back position for Clemson this year. And he wasn't my favorite player by any means. I didn't really trust him out there on the field, but I don't see why, if he's available and we already have our needs taken, such as a lot of offensive line, as just mentioned, we got a decent safety, maybe a steal of a safety, a good edge rusher in the 3rd round. We'll take that tight end that we're trying to look for to become our next project, become our next Dallas Goedert. I don't see why we don't just take, a running back, someone like that later on in the draft. People talk about us taking a quarterback just for insurance, which I think would be very stupid, and I don't want to get into that right now, but I could see it. I could see them taking Adam Randall just because, again, maybe I'm just biased for both teams, which, obviously I am, but I think it would be a cool idea. I think it would be a cool project. I really think that it's a especially that far down the draft in the 6th round, I think that it's a really low reward, or really like just decently high reward and no risk situation, because in the 6th round you're getting guys that could either make a huge impact out of nowhere, or you're getting guys that'll just never play. And honestly, again, in the 6th round, you hopefully, unless you already only have like 3 picks, you'll have already taken care of your main needs. You'll have already taken care of, wide receiver, edge rusher, offensive line. I think that will be set. I think that we won't need to worry about him and his potential impact going in to that final round of the draft. I think he's a fine player. I think that he is going to be a definite project, just trying to fit what position he could actually fit into in the NFL draft. But overall, I think that it would be not really a worthwhile pick, but just something that we can honestly take and maybe experiment with. That's kind of my thinking, picking him later into the round. And we've talked a lot of Clemson players, especially just in the 4th and 4 segment and in the Phanatic segment. But now I want to touch on my actual mock for where all the Clemson prospects will end up going, just to kind of finish off, kind of round out this pursuit pod for this week. As we just mentioned, I have 3 players going in the 1st round. We mentioned Blake Miller to the Steelers, Peter Woods going to the Bears at the very end of the 1st round, as well as Avion Terrell playing an defensive back position in some aspect for the Chiefs, just to bolster their secondary. I mentioned TJ Parker going to the Titans later on. I think that would be a good pick for them, smart for them. The 3rd round, I have Antonio Williams going to the Steelers as a wide receiver, just to kind of also bolster out that wide receiver room. The Texans, I have them picking DeMonte Capehart, defensive line, to already bolster that amazing defensive line. Again, I think this is kind of like an Adam Randall situation. Decently high reward, really no risk here, because it either adds some depth for you at the D-line, and you could make him up to be a project, you could build up his skills, or he just, Capehart could just not play, and it's whatever. You already got your main positions that you need, the main needs that you need, earlier in the 5th round. I mean, I don't see, if you're the Texans, why you wouldn't just go offensive line, but that's just me. And then we mentioned Adam Randall, 197th to the Eagles, and we also mentioned earlier 196th, Cade Klubnik. So I think overall we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Clemson players picked in the first 6 rounds of the NFL draft. I could very well see Adam Randall being picked far later on, the 7th round, but I think these are all realistic expectations. Peter Woods was supposed to be a top 5, top 10 guy, and he's going to drop, I think, reasonably so. Avion Terrell has kind of held on to that late 1st round thing, and honestly, I would love to see the Eagles take him. I mentioned earlier the different guys I want to see the Eagles take. I would love to see them take Terrell, just because the aggressiveness he adds, the way he plays, similar to his brother, who's been proven in the NFL. TJ Parker would be a great pick for the Titans. I think Antonio Williams to the Steelers wouldn't hurt. Capehart to the Texans wouldn't hurt. Randall to the Eagles would just be a very interesting project to see what they do with him. Maybe he doesn't even make the team, or they don't even sign him to a full contract. And Klubnik, I just think he's insurance for the Vikings, just to kind of see what they can do there. But overall, that's just my thoughts on where Clemson could go in this NFL draft. And overall, that's just my overall thoughts on the NFL draft itself. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think the 1st round has a lot of questions. I think, again, the top 4 picks are basically set in stone. It's really just a matter of where the Titans and Cardinals go with those 3rd and 4th picks, and see maybe even to see like where the trades go, because my mock was based on where the draft order sat when I did it 2 nights ago. So where the draft order sat on Monday is where I had all those players going. But I think honestly, the way I picked it makes the most sense for everyone. Everyone that kind of was a risk would drop more and more into the draft. Everyone that was hyped up and called elite would be picked higher up. I think it just makes sense. I think that my draft shows the true value of these players, but it's the NFL. It's a very different game from the NBA and any other draft, so anything can really happen. Plus, it's a very, very, very long draft. So I could be completely wrong. We could be seeing guys that I've picked get undrafted. If you guys want to see the full mock draft, I can release it somewhere. If you want to see the full mock draft, I can release it. I can put on Instagram later on today. But yeah, that basically covers it for this week. Thank you all for tuning into the Pursuit Pod every single week. I love all of you, as I always say. And to finish out this segment and to finish out this episode, go Tigers first and foremost. Go Flyers. Go Sixers. Just captured Game 2 over the Celtics. That series has now become a series. Go Birds. Let's get someone good in this draft. Hopefully Proctor. And go Phils. Let's turn around this damn season. All right. Hope you all have a good day. I'll see y'all later.